I just finished an entire series on WX. Here's what I learned. WX's base stats have been decreased to be 100 for everything. The health, sanity, and hunger are all lower than normal. To make up for this, WX gains 2 more circuit slots in his charge meter. The charge meter in question has been reworked to be completely different. There are 4 differences. Number 1. Circuits are all or nothing. So what does this mean? Well, in vanilla, each circuit slot has its own independent charge. Either it has power or it doesn't. You can tell a circuit slot has power based on the color it displays. When a circuit is plugged in, it will only gain its benefits if all the circuit slots it occupies have power. In it's the opposite. Circuits can be active, even though the slots they are plugged into have no power. It isn't until you completely run out of power in your charge meter the circuits deactivate. Why is it like this? Well, it's because of number 2. Circuits drain power. That's right, circuits now slowly chip away at your charge meter. Based on how many slots are occupied, 1 unit of charge will be lost every 60 to 270 seconds. This means that although you have a greater sized charge meter, there's a limit to how much you can actually use it. Number 3. Circuits can be extracted for free. Normally, using the circuit extractor will damage the circuit being removed while also depleting the power in the slots that the circuit was taking up. This penalty is removed in You can insert and remove circuits as much as you'd like without damaging the charge meter or the circuit. This incentivizes the player to constantly switch between circuits, rather than equip a single one and sit on it. The charge meter can also be restored in various ways. WX restores charge passively 3 times faster, but only if no circuits are plugged in. Eating 50 hunger worth of food will instantly restore 1 charge. Eating electric foods will fully restore your charge meter, rather than just a single slot. These foods include things like goat milk, raspberries, and boiled goat jelly. Sleeping restores the charge meter as well. Finally, number 4. Circuits drain durability. There's no longer a cost to removing these circuits. That doesn't mean they will last forever. Quite the opposite actually. Circuits will instead lose durability while being used. To be specific, every circuit loses 5% durability a day, meaning they last 20 days in total. WX also has quotes for specific durability thresholds, warning the player about the durability of circuits that they aren't able to see. If you ignore the warnings and allow the circuit to break while equipped to you, your entire charge meter will be instantly depleted, and all other circuits will be forced into your inventory. In other words, you don't want to be equipping circuits unless you are actively benefiting from their perks. Otherwise, you'd just be wasting them. All of these things combined results in a much more interesting version of the WX78 we all know and love. While you are given the ability to equip more circuits than normal, you're also restricted on how often you are able to use them. Rather than the passive and stale playstyle of equipping a few circuits and calling it a day, you're instead given more options. You can use more circuits at a time, have the flexibility of swapping them out in seconds, but are limited by a constant loss of charge and circuit durability. Uncompromising Mode's WX is versatile. We are given 16 circuits to choose from, 12 of which are unique, and since we can easily swap them out, we can make use of them all. Speaking of circuits, every single one of them has been tweaked or reworked as well. I'll go over the changes for each one and briefly summarize their potential and situational usefulness. The hardy circuits have been changed to give less health but gain a flat damage resistance. The damage resistance seems to apply to physical damage taken before armor is calculated. Spiders deal 20 damage, but adding circuits on top of it will reduce it by 5. Watch what happens when we reach 20 damage reduction. You can see we took 2 damage rather than 0, and there's a reason for this. This is because the damage reduction is capped at 2, unless you are wearing armor, of course. This is a very interesting interaction the damage reduction has with armor. The interaction being, the armor durability is also affected. The damage the armor receives is also calculated based off of the damage resistance. This is why you can see both me and the armor taking very little damage. This makes the circuit incredibly effective against weaker mobs. That being said, you are pretty much required to use them against bosses too, even though the flat damage resistance is less effective against stronger attacks. Processing circuits have been buffed. Both provide more sanity per minute than before, and they also gain a new sanity aura resistance. This type of circuit is very useful against bosses with large insanity auras. Besides that, It's also very good at maintaining your sanity for as long as you want. One super processing circuit is pretty much all you need to cancel out the sanity drain of dusk and night. And since going insane is a lot more dangerous in uncompromising mode, this circuit becomes that much more valuable. The Gastrogain circuits have been buffed as well. The smaller one has a small hunger drain reduction, similar to how the big one has in vanilla. It's with the Super Gastrogain circuit where things get very interesting. For starters, each circuit will increase the circuit drain timer by 20%. Just keep note that this means that the more slots you have occupied, the less effective the drain reduction would actually be. But no one cares about that. Let's talk about the other ability, the one that can alter negative food values. The Super Gastrogain Circuit has a new effect which reduces negative food values from the things you eat. The more circuits you have, the more effective this becomes. What's interesting is that for circuits, the negative values are converted into positives. I'm not kidding, by the way. You could literally eat monster meat and heal yourself rather than take damage. It's a very fun and niche perk, but so situational that you probably won't ever use it. The acceleration circuits have been nerfed to be harder to use. Instead of giving the player a flat speed boost, it does what the name suggests. It gives us acceleration. After running for about a second, you will build up the speed the circuit would have normally given in vanilla. If you stop moving for any reason whatsoever, you will quickly begin losing speed. Actions like picking things up, breaking objects, and even fighting mobs will slow you down. Although it's not as good for combat as it is in vanilla, it's not useless either. The speed built up doesn't go away instantly. Plus, it will be more effective based on the amount of super acceleration circuits you decide to use. Speaking of speed, you might want to be careful, since the circuit also gains a new perk. If you have at least 2 acceleration circuits equipped, you will eventually begin charging like a rook. The more circuits you have equipped, the faster you will reach this threshold and the more damage the charge will do. You heard me right, running into mobs will damage them, but don't be too careless with it. Charging into mobs will damage you and knock you backwards as well. The charge damage dealt ranges from 153 to 187. Damage taken will range from 15 to 18. It's also worth noting the charge can only hit one target, so there's absolutely zero area of effect damage to it. Both of these circuits have received minor buffs. The Illumination circuit has a noticeably larger light radius to it, making it very convenient and valuable. With 2 of them, you cover an insane amount of area with light. It certainly is a whole lot more than it used to be. The Optoelectronic circuit has a small tweak to it as well. Since we can now fit 2 into our charge meter, wearing a second one will increase our view distance. We can even combine it with the Horizon Expandinator to increase this way further. Pretty cool, right? The Beanbooster Circuit has all of the perks the Super Processing Circuit does. Additionally, the health regen of the item has been buffed from 10 health per minute to 12. Since circuits only last 20 days, this means that the Beanbooster Circuit can potentially heal 1920 health to the player before it breaks. For reference, 3 jelly beans can heal the player for 366 health in total, making the Beanbooster Circuit over 5 times more efficient per royal jelly spent, and that's only considering the health benefits. All in all, this is a very good circuit. The Chorusbox Circuit gains a new ability in Uncompromising Mode. Long story short, it increases bird spawn rates. This doesn't become too noticeable until you start wearing 2 of them. Once you do, birds will spawn so fast that you'll basically be surrounded by them. I can tell you 2 ways you can take advantage of this. The first method would be to use something like a pan food to put them all to sleep. The second method is more interesting. The second method would be to fight Mother Goose while wearing them. Both Mother Goose's leap and tornado attacks don't scare birds away, causing them to become collateral damage. You don't even have to kill the boss, you just need to keep it aggroed on you so it can farm a healthy dose of morsels and feathers to your liking. The Electrification Circuit has been granted 2 new perks. For starters, enemies that attack you will receive an electric shock and be stunned. The stun duration depends on how many Electrification Circuits you have equipped. As an added bonus, the Electrification Circuit will slowly restore your charge meter as you attack enemies. It's a very nice bonus to have. This is my favorite circuit change of them all, because it's pretty much entirely reworked. The vanilla thermal circuit gave us invulnerability to freezing, but that's boring, so it got removed. Instead, the thermal circuit provides the player with 120 insulation. This is the same amount that a Tam O'Shanter gives. But that's only the tip of the iceberg here. The thermal circuit also warms up the user by a little bit each time we mine, chop, or hit something. This is a great and easy way to keep yourself warmer during the winter. But do be careful. Carelessly using it too much can actually cause you to overheat instead. Speaking of using it, there's one more very important detail about the thermal circuit rework you should know. That being, the thermal circuit will increase your work efficiency based on how high your temperature is. In other words, the higher your temperature, the less chops you'll need to cut down a tree or a giant tree. The closer your temperature gets to 60 degrees, the closer you'll be to a 2x multiplier for work efficiency. Once you pass that threshold, you'll have a 2.5x multiplier, and with two thermal circuits, this instead becomes a 3.5x multiplier. This circuit is incredibly powerful because it gives WX woody level chopping skills. Not only does it combat the winter cold very well, but it can also make it easier to harvest resources and chop down toadstool spore caps. Last, but certainly not least, is the refrigerant circuit. Similar to the thermal circuit, it has been massively overhauled. The old refrigerant circuit made us immune to overheating, but that's gone for the same reasons. Instead, you're given a handful of new perks. The most important perk to note is that the circuit will constantly reduce your temperature, but only when you are standing still. To be more specific, each refrigerant circuit equipped will lower your temperature by 1.25 every 0.5 seconds. This means that if you aren't in combat, you can easily prevent yourself from overheating during the summers with just this item. However, I still highly recommend that you invest in something like a Summerfrest, so you don't have to cool yourself down every 10 seconds. Just like the thermal circuit though, make sure to be careful. Standing still for far too long will freeze you in place, dropping your temperature, draining your charge meter, and leaving you vulnerable. Other perks include turning you into a walking icebox. The foods in your inventory will spoil slower when you have this circuit equipped. The spoilage is reduced by 25% with one circuit and 62.5% with two of them. Additionally, the circuits will occasionally generate ice and drop them on the ground. Each circuit makes ice every 25 seconds. One more thing worth mentioning, the refrigerant circuit will reduce your wetness to 0 once a certain threshold is reached. In vanilla, the threshold is 95 wetness. In uncompromising mode, that has been changed to 36. This can save you from large amounts of wetness much easier, but it's pretty rare that you'll actually need this. So, that's everything new with Uncompromising Mode's WX78. I have to say, this version of the character is so much more fun to play. I really enjoyed playing it throughout my most recent all-boss run, which you should totally check out by the way. If you're new to or struggle with Uncompromising Mode, I highly recommend you give WX78 a try. Among the current survivors, I'd say he's definitely one of the best for survival. Although he's very vulnerable to everything without circuits, that shouldn't be too much of an issue because they are very cheap and easy to obtain. The circuits we have available to us can help mitigate pretty much any obstacle in our way. Uncompromising Mode throws many dangers at us, but WX can handle them all. Insanity is a looming danger. Processing circuits can keep it at bay. Seasonal bosses and other enemies can pose a threat as well, but hardy circuits can make you tankier than even Wickfred. Without a doubt though, the most helpful skill WX78 has to survive would be the ability to eat spoiled foods without cost. Everything spoils 50% faster in UM, which is a major problem for most characters. A lot of the food you will prepare will go stale and lose most of its value, and it was really nice not having to worry about that. Other than that, be smart with how you manage your circuits. A technique I completely abused during my run involved a trick with the Gastrogain Circuits. I call this technique stat manipulation. When you equip a circuit that increases a certain stat, the percentage you're at that stat will remain the same. The same goes for unequipping. What this means is that if you want to heal yourself, you should first get rid of any hardy circuits first. If you want to use a tent to restore sanity as well, consider using Gastrogain Circuits before you sleep because the total hunger spent will be way lower this way. WX's base stats are very low, which is something that we can take advantage of. The typical rule of thumb is restore the stats when they're at base level and spend them when they're inflated. Anyways, I want to wrap things up by giving a special thanks to Fourthless, the person responsible for developing this rework. He even helped me retrieve some of the numbers I used in my video, which was very kind of him. This will probably be the last time we will see anything WX related on this channel, at least for a while. There's so many more characters I'm looking forward to spending time on, so I don't want to spend too much more time on this. Lastly, I'd like to ask you, the viewer, to give me feedback on what you'd like to see. This is my first time trying out a voiceover, and I've never really made a guide before, so please, let me know what you think in the community polls I'll be making soon. There should be like 3 more after I'm done with this video. With all that being said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.